There we go. Cool. Welcome everyone. This is I guess, the inaugural MachinePools working group call. This is part of Cluster API and therefore part of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. The usual spiel. Be kind to each other in this meeting. There's going to be quite a few of us initially in this first meeting, so just to keep things on track, if you would like to chip in and speak, please use the raise hands feature, and then we'll call on you to make your point. So pretty much following what we do in standard CAPI meetings. Let me just check my audio as well, because sometimes it does. Oh, that's right. So I've got some slides just to set the picture, nothing onerous, and then really just get onto the discussion and then crack on really. So first of all, thank you for everyone for turning up. This is more than expected number of people showing interest in this, so this is hopeful for what we were trying to achieve with this working group. 2 seconds. So share. There is also meeting notes actually within the invite as well. So it would be helpful you also to add your list, your name to the list of attendees. That just allows us to track who turned up and who's interested and stuff going forwards. So the agenda is going to be fairly light at the first meeting. So it's really just to set the scene, expectations, and then basically get a list of things that, as a group, we would like to do to next, because we're probably all at varying degrees of experience. So we need to sort that out as well. So if I just share my desktop, got my desktop, maybe that one instead. Cool. I won't be able to necessarily see. Oh, okay. So like I said, this is the first call of the MachinePools working group. Very light agenda, quick introductions. Then going to cover what is the goal of this, what we're trying to achieve, some expectations, current issues. When I talk about the current issues, these are the things that are currently known that we need to improve with MachinePools. Next steps, plan of action, and a discussion really. And probably the most important parts are those last 2 points there, because that will shape how we move forward as a group. So it's probably not necessarily feasible for all 22 of us currently on the call to do intros. So I just thought perhaps myself and Matt could intro, because we've, I guess, to this point, we're the ones that have tried to get this off the ground. So Matt, if you want to intro yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'm Matt Boersma. I'm a maintainer of CAPZ Cluster API for Azure, where we do use MachinePools fairly heavily, especially managed MachinePools. And so we have a strong interest in making sure they continue. And I have tried to be part of that and pretty much failed. I have just not found enough time to really contribute to helping out MachinePools and CAPI. So that's why we're asking for help. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I have also done some CAPI work and run the release team, and finally just handed that off. So that's the meeting in a half an hour I have to go to. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, Richard. Yeah, so I'm a maintainer of AWS. Been a maintainer of the AWS provider. Sorry, not just AWS as a whole. For a long time. Also try and maintain the K3S provider. Less time on that. And also something called the MVM, which is the micro VM provider, to varying degrees of success on those, probably in that order of the amount of time I have. Also used to help out with the GCP provider, but had to give that up because I was not showing up consistently. So what's the goal of this working group? It's quite simple, really. So MachinePools have been experimental for years and years. I should have worked it out, but in my head, I have 3 or 4 years at least they've been experimental in CAPI. And this, I guess this implies certain things that they've never got to the level of quality where they could be deemed to be graduated. And that's for a number of reasons. And so the current goal here is really, I'll put two here, but really it is to get MachinePools to the point where it can graduate out of experimental. So we have confidence in its, its functionality, its maturity, and it's actively maintained. And then so we can say, yeah, it is no longer experimental. And then this has the added benefit to users in the fact that they have confidence in that they can use this feature and it's not going to drastically change or, the worst case scenario, disappear completely. So that is the number one goal. Secondary goal is here as well, which does lead into that first goal, which is to get to that point, we have to have MachinePools actively and consistently maintained. So yeah, one leads into the other. And the core, I should call out here as well, the core CAPI maintainers have done a great job of trying to bring MachinePools up and carrying it along. But the simple fact is the core group of maintainers is small and they have a large amount of code to maintain and only a certain amount of hours in the day. So, there's only a certain amount of work they can do on MachinePools. So that's why we need a dedicated set of people willing to work on this. So a couple of expectations, I guess, based on that previous statement where maintainers are spread thin, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, we can disagree on this and see whether it's unreasonable. But I think there's a certain expectation that you should have probably used CAPI in some form. I don't necessarily mean used it to put clusters in production, but you should have at least used it to spin up clusters and you understand, what the different provider types, what is a management cluster, etc. We could discuss how we can, if you haven't used CAPI before, what we could do about that. But I guess one of the things is the amount of bandwidth people have available in the fact that we're trying to get people to graduation of the MachinePools versus just general mentoring and CAPI. There's going to be a bit of trade-off there. So it would be beneficial if you haven't used CAPI. Potentially you could do some self-learning and then contribute. But there are ways around that as well. Obviously, goes without saying you need to know Go if you're going to contribute to a Go project. Although there are a bunch of work items that are not necessarily to do with the Go side of things. There's a lot of stuff on the documentation side as well that needs to be done. Things like provider contract, documenting the provider contracts that we don't have and stuff like that. So it's not all coding. But I guess a large portion of it is coding that needs to be done to bring it up to speed. But we can split like that. So there's two current issues. We can go through these that currently drive, I guess, the known work that needs to be done on MachinePools, and I'll share these. So the first one is an issue a comment that Stefan put in there, because Matt, I think you raised the issue to say, how do we get MachinePools to graduation? And Stefan did a great brain dump of all of the things he could think of that are required. So that is in the first one there. And in the second issue is that's a slight subset and an extended version, contains some of the issues that were specifically targeting the recent V1 beta 2. So there's two lists there. I guess that's one of the first things we need to do is combine them down into one list, so you're not having to check in different locations, and we can do that. One comment on the second one, which is the V1 beta 2, is we just have to be careful. Obviously, V1 beta 2 is shipped, so anything that does actually require API version bumps, we would have to wait till V1 beta 3. But there may be some things in there that we can do. So we probably need to go through and review those just to see which things are just have to wait till the next API version bump, or some of the things that we can do now. But that's one of the things to combine into a single list. So some of the things I put down as next steps before we get into the discussion is yeah, for anyone that is new to CAPI, go through the quick start guide, create clusters, just to see how it works and get a feel for the different resource kinds and as the orchestration that the CAPI does and the stages within that, provisioning lifecycle and the ongoing management lifecycle. If you're new to MachinePools, again, you can go through the quick start guide, but instead of creating a cluster that's used in machine deployments, use a Docker provider and create a cluster with MachinePools, because the Docker provider does implement MachinePools, and that's probably the easiest way to get up to speed, especially if you're new. There's some documentation in on the site at the moment, so I've just put a link in there as well. That explains the experimental feature and goes into some detail. But there isn't a huge amount of other documentation. There are some KEPs as well, so enhancement proposals that we could link as well. And we should probably put all of these into the meeting notes for posterity, so you can go back and reference those. And I guess this is just one other question, just a general question to put it out there. Do we need a session as a group on how do you get started contributing and developing to CAPI? I know we didn't. I said, there was an expectation that it would be good if you had some knowledge in this area, but I was just wondering whether there was benefit to running a, half an hour or 45 minutes. Hey, this is how you set up your development environment. This is how you set up tilt. This is, how you can pull down or set up tilt to be able to run in a debugger and attach your debugger and things like that really improve your quality of life when it comes to contributing to CAPI. And then probably one of the first things, other than getting a single list of things to work on, is we need to document the provider contract properly and make sure it's as is in its current state. So that was a quick brain dump of the things. Yeah, go for it, Matt.
Kind of related to the provider contract, we were talking the other day. I'm not sure we actually know what all implementations of MachinePool are out there. We know about Kappa and CapZ and Mumble. I think there's some other ones, but it might be useful if somebody, if we want to come up with a list of actual implementations that we know about. Maybe it is just Kappa and CapZ, but I feel like there's some others out there that I don't know about.
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
a good idea.
Deb, I don't know how to say your name.
No problem. No problem. Can you hear me first?
Yeah.
My mic is always messed up. Yeah, I was gonna say, is there a way to like communicate with you guys? Because generally when we get started, there's gonna be very like a lot of stupid questions, and probably GitHub issues is not a good place to do it. So is there like a medium where people can communicate and ask those stupid questions, as I said?
So, yeah, go for it, Matt.
I think generally Slack is great for that. As long as we keep things in threads, they can certainly be newbie type questions, and I think that's appropriate.
Is there like an existing workspace?
Oh yeah. If you're not in the Slack, there's the cluster API channel. I'll put a link in here.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Justin, go ahead.
Hey, yes, awesome to see this. I wanted to quickly mention I have been working on a machine pool provider for CapG. So it didn't exist previously, but it is hopefully coming soon. We'll see. I think one of the big meta questions, which I think we should answer, is like, why machine pool? When do I use machine pool? When do I use machine deployment? Because there were historical reasons why we introduced machine pool. But I think those historical reasons have gone away, and it's not quite clear why someone should use machine pool when it kind of works against some of the CAPI ideas of like consistency and homogeneity. So I think getting a clarity on that message would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good shout, actually. Yeah, is there some documentation around machine deployment versus machine pools in the CAPI docs somewhere? To have a quick look, but sorry, I'm just keeping up with the notes.
Yeah, I just pasted a link there. It does mention that.
Ah, brilliant.
I mean, if I may, I think it does a good job. That doc does a good job of describing the difference between machine pools and machine deployments, but it doesn't describe why, as a user, I should use machine pool for my control plane, right? If that's what we want to say, for example, right? Like, and I think understanding that has a bunch of implications, because we might say, machine pools relaunch, and that's awesome for your control plane, but you don't need them for your nodes. Like, that's a hypothetical thing we could come up and say, and I think that would steer, like, the functionality that we want to optimize for, if we were to say such a thing, right? So I think that's why it's important to figure out when machine pool.
Yeah. I guess we should probably work that out as well up front, like in the next couple of weeks as a matter of priority, shouldn't we? Because there's some implied things. Well, there's lots of implied things, isn't there, in machine pools as well? And there's different variants, and yeah, it's just, I guess it's been a bit organic in places. Okay, so we should take that as an action item then. Let me. So why would pause? Yeah, and we also want the list of current implementations. Yeah, brilliant. So I guess, yeah. So on the question of an introduction to setting up. Andreas, you still got your hand up. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, just wanted to agree on docs as a problem, kind of. So as it puts it, the last link here, that's kind of a contract, but it doesn't describe much of why machine pools work the way they are, including machine pool machines, which isn't described in a great way.
Yeah.
And what just ends out, like there is no justification, so I guess we have to write that down. I would say let's later convert all the action items into issues, and then probably we can assign them soon. And regarding chat, I'm not sure if we should use the cluster API chat group, because it contains all the other maintainers who, most of them don't have experience or work regarding machine pools. Maybe it's possible to create a separate group for this. I think there are other working groups who did the same, not sure. Probably in the community repo, we can set something up like this if we don't have the access. Maybe Richard, I guess you did something in Slack before.
Yeah, you should be able to, because I set one up for the K3S provider. So yeah, that shouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah, and regarding getting started, what I really recommend people is to use Tilt. There's really good documentation in the CAPI book. You just search for CAPI development, CAPI Tilt. It's also a great tool to tail logs and watch for changes and so on. You can use it with different infrastructure providers. It's kind of easy to set up for local development. That's what I use whenever I have to do upstream only changes without going through my company's fork. So that makes most sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the single biggest quality of life thing you can do, isn't it, when you're contributing to CAPI, is using Tilt. Cool. I guess, Andreas, on that as well, was potentially having a different channel. Would it be beneficial to us to have a different Google group as well? Because at the moment we're managing this meeting via me just manually adding people to the calendar invite, whereas we could just do it via a group and people could subscribe to the group and leave as they so choose, as their interest changes. I don't know if that's worthwhile. Anyone has any opinions? Okay, I'll leave that one open. Uh,
Short note on that. And I don't think we need a separate Google group because email is not used very much, but Slack is. Probably for GitHub would be nice. First of all, if people label issues with area/machine pool is the first one. And I think what was proposed a few months ago by the core maintainers is to probably have a different set of people as, I'm not sure how it is, code owners or whatever the concept is in the Kubernetes repos, to kind of have a group of people who can review the machine pool stuff and then maybe automatically or manually assign those to issues and to PRs.
Yeah, so yes, there was some work done on reorganizing the repo to enable that as well. But I think there was probably need to see some consistency in contributions before those owner aliases are set up. So I think the onus would still fall on Fabrizio and Stefan to do final approvals of the changes that we make until we get to the point where we have people that are consistently contributing to and reviewing machine pool stuff, at which point they will add the owner aliases. No problem at all. But yeah, I guess you have to prove it first, don't we? But yeah, that's good. So we only got 5 minutes left. So would reasonable next steps be arrange a session for people that are interested in just getting started, sort of session, not for people that have already done this type of thing, set up, have already contributed to CAPI or one of its providers, but people that are fairly new as a learning thing. Then what's the next? Set up a channel potentially for us to not spam the general CAPI channel. Then we need to get down to that single list of things that we currently know about instead of them split across those two issues. So, and then make sure we got issues all set up for those. Are they? And then the why. Document the why question. Why would you use machine pools? What are they trying to solve over and above that is different to machine deployments? That sounded like a reasonable set of things for the next steps before we just all jump in and start fixing things. Just make sure that we're all clear on the direction and the why. Okay.
I think that's pretty good.
All right.
Without getting into specific issues.
Yeah, I think it could be quite interesting if we all just go all start having issues without some sort of agreement on our direction. So yeah, okay. Anyone? No, I'm happy to help with some of these, especially the why. But it would be good to get a group of people together to document that, and we could maybe all collaborate on our understanding of why you'd want to use machine pools. So maybe if we can get the channel set up first, and then I'll add all the people on this call to that channel, and then we could maybe collaborate async on who's interested in defining that why. Go for it, Matt. I think you were first, weren't you?
How are you
Right,
going
Matt?
to communicate? Sorry, I think we're both named Matt.
Sorry.
How are you going to communicate the new channel? Just curious.
Good question. I can either email the people on this call because I've got all your email address and just say hey, or I can just ping you on Slack. And I could just invite people on Slack. To be honest, I've got pretty much everyone's Slack aliases, so I can do that and just add you if you're
Sounds
happy
good.
with that. Go for it, Barrett.
Hey, I was wondering why we need a separate channel, separate Google group and all that, because it's just a feature in Cappy. And is this a practice where we're separately driving features in Cappy where we discuss things in separate Slack channels and all that?
That's a good question. I'm fairly agnostic on whether we set up a new channel, but I can see that initially there's going to be a lot of noise potentially that would go on the Cappy channel that some people may overwhelm other things, but I don't know. I'm happy to go with the consensus.
Yeah,
Matt
I mean,
Andreas.
I'm just thinking like if we do discuss something technical, and obviously the wider community needs to know about it, yeah, because this is going to live in the Cappy report. We'll continue to work on this.
Yeah, it's a good point. People have any strong opinions of new channel message?
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion, but I was thinking along the same lines that this is just a feature in Cappy. And so as long as we confine ourselves to threads, people can feel free to ignore those threads. But maybe we should bring it up tomorrow at the Cappy meeting and see if they have a feeling either way. Because if the main motivation is we're just worried about cluttering the maintainer's space there, then maybe we should just ask them and see if they care either way. On the other hand, if we do have a separate channel, it does make sort of mass communication a little easier. But either way, maybe let's bring it up at Cappy tomorrow and see if the maintainers feel really strongly one way or the other, because that probably sways things too. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Cool. All right. Well, let's do that, and then we can communicate after that post if there's going to be another, like I said, an ad hoc. Let's learn about Cappy session. Cool.
Thanks
Right.
so much for doing this and providing all the information.
Yeah, thanks for getting us going, Richard.
Cool. Well, it's exciting. Let's keep MachinePools alive. Cool. All right. Speak to you soon. Thank you all for attending.
Yeah. See you soon.